The decarbonisation programme at Board Móna and potential job losses at the company. And the first speaker is Deputy Brian Stanley.
And I welcome this opportunity, Minister, to address you on this because it's a very important issue in Laois and Offaly. And as a former employee of Board Móna, and I'm very concerned about it. Indeed, most of my family worked in Board Móna. The situation, the effects that this is going to have on the Midlands of the massive job closures and the closure of bogs is going to be devastating. I was in the town of Heydon last night, for example. People are very concerned there. People are very concerned right across County Laois as well. People who work in Offaly with Board Móna and indeed work in South Kildare. There's huge concern locally about it. And we are moving to a situation where the Heydon, the West Offaly plant, they will have to switch to biomass. That's there in front of us. The Cowen plant that's dependent on horticultural peat, that's going to have to change as well because of the demands of the retail chains in England that they want a peat-free compost by 2020 and 2021. And what I want to know, Minister, is that where is the government's plan on this? Where is central government's plan? You're the shareholders, you act on behalf of the people with this. Board Móna was established with a clear mandate to create jobs, particularly jobs in the Midlands. Board Móna was created to develop our indigenous sources and indigenous industry, and it certainly fulfilled that and transformed the Midlands of Ireland, and in particular Laois, Offaly, and indeed parts of Kildare and other counties as well. What we need to do is we need to move now quickly. There's time to be made up for. We've sleepwalked into this. I've been highlighting this for a number of years, the fact that we need to put on other sources of raw material in place. We need to move quickly to develop biomass crops. We need to develop wood products. We need to be moving to renewable gas, solar and biogas. Board Móna can do all of that, and they need to be doing that, to be putting those green industries in place now.
Next, Deputy Martin Heydon.
I thank the Minister for taking the time to take what is a very important topic here. First of all, my thoughts are with the staff and their families of Board Móna on what has been a very difficult day, and an awful lot of these people are my constituents. I think a lot of people hear Board Móna, they think of bogs in Offaly, but there's 330 administrative and management staff, one of the biggest employers in the biggest town in my county, in Newbridge. And those people, as well as the 70 or 80 jobs down in Kilberry at the peat moss plant, they've known this day has been coming, but it's also a very difficult week also. And part of my frustration is around the fact that we had a big announcement of a range of reduction in numbers that was going to be sought yesterday, but we didn't have the package to go with what would be sought under voluntary redundancies. I would have much preferred if people going home last night to sit down with their families and talk about the future had that level of detail, because it is a very difficult time, and there are some of those who will be thinking of taking a package, and there are others who want to be part of Board Móna's next phase as they move to an economically and environmentally sustainable future. But for this to work, we obviously all want these redundancies to be voluntary. For them to be voluntary, that package needs to be generous enough. It needs to be in line, to my mind, with what other semi-states have recently received in the likes of RTE and An Post, to make sure that it is worth people's while and it takes account of the service that they've given to the company, and also in terms of the upheaval that they would face in trying to change roles. Also, Minister, I'd like you to touch on what supports the state can give to the company itself and to those staff, both existing and those thinking of leaving, in terms of supports from Europe and the just transition to a low carbon world international fund. What supports are there that we can do as a government in every way to ensure the future viability of the company as they look to move from brown to green, but also with those staff both existing and thinking of taking a redundancy package?
Chairman. As you know, I spoke on this matter earlier during leaders' questions when the Taoiseach responded in very general terms and commendable in a sense insofar as he reiterated the commitment of government to the various state supports being available to the staff in the immediate short term. The two questions I asked specifically this morning I would hope might be dealt with in more elaborate terms with the Minister that now has responsibility over this area, and that is, can he confirm to the House that ESB, for example, will proceed, now that they've got verification from the government last Monday week, that it is government policy to proceed with a co-fuelling at Lanesborough and at Shannon Bridge up to 2025. I would hope that the planning application would cater for, and also maybe an extension at Eden Dairy from 2023 to 2025, because that would guarantee what remains in the peat harvesting sector, and there are over 900 in my own county, notwithstanding the others. And the other point, you know, the Taoiseach has said that the government was open to suggestions and recommendations from the House and others. And as I said earlier today, all the various local authorities are meeting next week to formulate a response and to prepare a mechanism that they believe would best serve their own regions. And, you know, as I said, I wrote to the Taoiseach, whom has informed me that he forwarded my correspondence to yourself, Minister, in relation to my proposal for a just, sustainable transition forum, which could be put in place in order to address these issues and make recommendations in relation to innovation and enterprise to support the region with alternative forms of employment. But also, would there be funding available to such a forum, as previous deputies have alluded to, the Globalisation Fund from the EU. But I would like to see the government inject cash in this in relation to the carbon tax revenue, or a portion of it. And you know, the PSO itself expires next year. That was the public service obligation payment to the ESB for those power plants, is a saving to government, and a portion of that again could be given towards this to show the community that there is a willingness and a commitment and a pathway to help and assist the region.
Thanks. Deputy Minister.
Yeah, well, first of all, I'd like to thank the deputies for raising this, and I absolutely recognise the concern that all deputies have expressed about the impact of this potentially on families who are affected. What I would have to say is Móna, as you know, is a commercial state company with a mandate to develop the Midlands region, and I believe that they are taking the appropriate steps now in a timely way to set out a strategy that takes into account their obligation to operate in a decarbonised economy. They've recognised this, and they're taking the necessary steps to ensure that there will be employment opportunities and that they will continue to be drivers of economic development in the Midlands. So, you know, they have recognised the obligation of decarbonisation. These decisions that they're taking will mean that they will reduce their carbon footprint by more than 90% by 2030. So this is a very major step by them. But it also recognised the inevitability of those exits that they have to make. So there's two issues, obviously. They have set out in their strategic plan the opportunities that they believe that they can develop that will provide secure employment opportunities with good prospects for the future. And they are in the areas that Deputy Stanley and others have mentioned. In other words, expanding their renewables, expanding their activities in the resource recovery area, and identifying new export growth markets where they can use their very significant assets and strengths to develop new trading opportunities that will deliver employment. I can confirm to Deputy Cowen that the ESB will be submitting a planning application, and that is expected imminently in the next couple of weeks. Then on the second issue, which was raised by deputies, and that is the support to workers who are directly affected. And I can absolutely assure you that not only would Móna be putting in place its own programme, which it has worked out and used before with its trade unions, supporting workers, assessing their skill base, looking at supporting them in finding new opportunities, but also all the machinery of the state, be it from the Department of Social Protection, the ETBs, the skill for reskilling. All of those will be available and made available to support the workers. And I can assure you of that. In terms of the redundancy terms and the need for a voluntary exit, Móna has signalled that they intend this to be a voluntary exit programme. They are consulting now with the representatives of the workers about the terms of that programme, and it will of course require approval from the Department of Public Expenditure and Reform as well. In terms of ensuring that the state does everything to support the future building of the economy in the Midlands, I can assure you that the Board of Móna will be working with the Implementation Committee of the Midlands Regional Action Plan for Jobs. It will be working with local authorities and ideas that come forward from them. It will be working also with the local enterprise offices, the Midlands Regional Skills Fora, and they will be developing initiatives that can come from that. Such initiatives can be enabled through the 1 billion Rural Development Regeneration Fund, which has been published by government, but also can be developed through regional enterprise funds of Enterprise Ireland. I know Board of Móna itself is envisaging that it would look at developing tech hubs, enterprise centres that could create opportunities. And finally, to say on respect of the Globalisation Fund, there will be an application for the Globalisation Fund prepared with the trade unions and the Board of Móna to draw on that source.
Stanley.
And you know, the key issue here is that we don't want the Midlands to become the Rust Belt of Ireland. Board of Móna has plans. I met the CEO last week, Mr. Tom Donnellan, and some of his staff, and he outlined to me very clearly that they have plans in terms of energy waste, and indeed the whole area of horticulture. There's possibilities there as well, along with aqua. Possibilities. So there's huge opportunities to have a site there in Tullamore which could be utilised there in relation to waste on the ring road. There's the Móna plant, which AES, which is a part of the Board of Móna group of companies, that can be used there as well, right at the Topical intersection in Portlaoise. It's literally at the crossroads of Ireland. I'm glad to hear that the government are going to make an application for the Globalisation Fund. That's very, very important, because I was going to highlight that to you. But it's also, we need to look at the subsidies that are currently going to burn, to subsidise the burning of peat, which will be phased out. We need to look at using those as well. As long as, along with the Climate Action Fund, there's 500 million earmarked in the National Development Plan for climate action and reducing greenhouse gas emissions, and we need to look at that, because Board of Móna, I believe, have a big part to play in this country, not just in the Midlands, in terms of moving to that new green, renewable economy, sustainable economy, and I would like to see that happening.
Thank you. Deputy Martin Heydon.
Minister, for his response, Cathaoirleach, and in particular welcome confirmation that an application will be made for the Globalisation Fund, because I think this is very fitting, and you know, in many ways, the equivalent of closure of coal mines in Wales and different areas. When a big change in structure in a firm of this size changes, it has a very big impact across the whole of the Midlands, and particularly in Kildare, where so many of the staff are. But I'm mindful that Board of Móna for the last 85 years didn't just generate power for homes and villages, they generated jobs and employment, and that's why, in having met with the CEO recently of Board of Móna, I was very much heartened to hear of the ambition that they have for the future of the company. And it's to ask you, Minister, what supports you believe through your department you can give to Board of Móna as they look to, you know, fulfil their ambition to become the largest renewables company in the country, which is realising and looking to focus on the greatest asset they have, which is the land bank they have, along with the areas like aquaculture and others, and how the Climate Action Fund can be used, or how Board of Móna can best look to try and get a proportion of that we can support many of the jobs that will be developed in the green sector into the future.
Thanks, Deputy Heydon. Deputy Barry Cowen.
Thank you, and thank the Minister for his response. Firstly, I welcome the fact that you now have stated publicly here in this House that ESB will proceed with those planning applications in the coming weeks, and we look forward to that, and that does guarantee, one would imagine, the remaining workforce in the peat harvesting area to meet the demands that will be expected in the event of that permission being forthcoming. And the blueprint for such a permission was set and a precedent created in relation to the Heydon dairy application that was successful eventually in the courts in recent years. I also welcome the commitment to apply to the Globalisation Fund for specific targeting in the Midlands region. I'm confused when you say that, you know, the board and the various local authorities and others can make applications to existing avenues available, the different arms of the state, whether it be Enterprise Ireland, whether it be the Rural Regeneration Programme and so forth. I want you to commit to a specific forum to deal with the offshoot of this decision and of this ongoing transition that is taking place. You know, has been the driver of economic life in my county and adjoining ones in this region for 80 years. The effect is not only on the workers and on their families and their communities, but on the adjoining businesses and on the services that are offered in the region as a whole. And they have been and will be decimated unless there's a specific concerted effort to deal with this issue and this issue alone. And that's why we want funding specifically targeted not only to globalisation, but from the state too, whether it be from ring fencing of carbon carbon tax revenues and the PSO saving that is there from next year on.
Thanks, Deputy. Lots of questions, Minister.
Just to absolutely reassure Deputy Stanley that we have no intention of allowing the Midlands become a rust belt. And I was the one who introduced regional action plans. First time ever the state had developed bottom-up regional enterprise plans for which we allocated 250 million in regional enterprise funds. And that was the first time we ever had such a concerted approach. Under that, we have established an implementation committee for driving regional opportunities in the Midlands. And that is the vehicle, working with Bord na Móna, which is a strong commercial state body with, as you say, 80,000 hectares of state lands, huge assets and experiences, a very strong brand and a commitment to drive this forward. So I believe we have the structures there to address the needs that need to be addressed, and we have made available the funds. As you say, the Regeneration Fund is a $1 billion fund, the Climate Action Fund is a 500 million fund, and the Regional Enterprise Fund is a 250 million fund. Every proposal that comes forward will get a proper chance to be developed, and I think Bord na Móna are doing exactly that. They are a powerful development agency with strong assets, and they are best placed to drive that forward. The creation of individual task forces does not add value when we have an implementation committee dedicated to the work of driving the Midlands region forward. It has the leader of IDA, the leader of Enterprise Ireland. It has all the key players along with the private sector driving those projects. And I think that's the structure that we need. They are tried and proven. As you know, we set a target of 14,000 jobs for the Midland region, and that figure has been exceeded in the period.